members of civil society organizations, representatives of political parties, youth and women groups are leaving no stone unturned in their bid to ensure more inclusiveness of women and the youth ahead of the 2023 general elections. This forum brings together experts who are challenging the current status quo, which they say creates setbacks for the active participation of groups identified as marginalized because of stringent conditions by political parties.
If you really want to appreciate that women have been there as voters, women have been there along the line, this is the time to change the tide. And we hope that, with the women who are coming out, because what we used to have is women are not coming out. Those who have come out, have you given them the chance? They are even introducing free, we are told some of the parties introducing free collection of funds by women. How free is free?
Reducing the cost of your nomination forms is not enough. In fact, you're just scratching the surface, because we all know that the party nomination forms is nothing compared to the campaign funding and the campaign expenses that candidates would have to make. So I'd like to urge you, please reduce the cost of your nomination forms.
A breakdown of women's representation in the parliament since the return to democracy in 1999 to date shows an abysmal performance from 2.4% between 1999 to 2003, a rise to 4% between 2003 to 2007, and then plummeting to 3.6% between 2019 to 2023.
In 1999 to 2003, 97.6% of members of the State Houses of Assembly were men, and to see that in 2019 to 2023, this figure is still 95.5%.
With the message clear, representatives of political parties appear ready to change the narrative, beginning with the 2023 general elections.
We need you women to take the mantle of this government. We have to work assiduously to actualize our dreams.
The call for better representation of women and youth in the political space has been a long-running advocacy. Encouraging the participation of these critical groups in both elective and appointed positions is one area political parties should take seriously going into the 2023 general elections.
As much as you gripe about the emotional burden of your work, this job certainly has its privileges, its perks and privileges. And one of them is being able to talk about issues that really affect you in a very upfront manner. This morning, we are being joined by Dr. Betta Edu, who is a national woman leader of the All Progressives Congress, the APC, and also former Commissioner for Health in Cross River State. Ma'am, you're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Well, pretty long conversation we've been having on women, and it looks like it's happening in almost every facet. Look at just before we went into that report, the advert which we saw was about an organization advertising just how they support women businesses, women in general, so to speak. And then we now have that report which was talking about how women need to be more involved in politics. And for a moment, when I saw that you were now national woman leader, I'm like, oh, why didn't she just take up a role? She was pretty vocal at the state level. Why isn't she running for an elective position in Cross River State or maybe at the national level? Was there a reason for that? I'm just asking.
Yeah, so basically, I want to be that prompter for women all across the nation. And this portfolio offers me a larger platform to reach more women. I'm sure, you know, before this time, I used to be the Commissioner for Health in Cross River State and the chairman of all the Commissioners of Health in Nigeria. And my influence was basically around the health sector, which is my core sector-specific intelligence having that grab on it, right? Politics was also one thing which I was very strong at. But when an opportunity came to be the voice for women, to actually begin, negotiate, intercede, lobby for women, I thought it was a great opportunity to make many women. And since I came on board, I think it's just about a month ago, I've been very, very active, encouraging women, sensitizing them, holding programs that create awareness and help them to key into leadership, into politics, into governance. Remember, we have very low female participation in governance, in leadership, in politics, in Nigeria, and this is that rhetoric that I'm here to change.
You don't think that would have been better served if you had run for elective office and maybe, for instance, at the National Assembly, where we're in dire need of laws that engender equality amongst the sexes, where our women are ever so few, and I know that that's one of the things you said you're speaking about and you're lobbying for, but do you think that, because...
So probably if I ran for the elections, I'll just be one extra woman in the legislation. But being here, I can facilitate for up to at least 50 or more women to get into the National Assembly. So when these laws go to the floor of the Assembly, we have more women that can lobby their colleagues, that can defend it and ensure that it's passed and that it gets into the law. So really, I think it's about the self-interest and interest of a larger number of women.
Okay. So it's interesting to me that both of the major parties now, the national woman leader of the two major parties, have a very strong link with Cross River State. I don't know, maybe there's Cross River, which we do not know now about its women.
I think the governor of Cross River State, Senator Professor Ben Ayadi, has shown very good example that indeed Nigeria can take a leaf from. First, as I speak to you, we have about 7 commissioners as women at the State Executive Council. There are over 40 special advisors that are women. There are over 100 special assistants that are women, and the number goes on and on. When you come to elective positions, we have 4 chairmen of councils that are women. Almost all, I think about 16 vice chairmen are actually women. And when you go to the councillors, we have almost 20 councillors in Cross River State that are women. And then, of course, the list just goes on and on board's appointment and the rest of it, heading parastatals. You have a lot of women. I used to be the DG of Cross River State Primary Healthcare Development Agency, and as I speak to you, the DG is still a woman. In Saka, it's a woman. I can just go on and on and on. So it's really a state that has given that prominence, mainstreaming for women. And I'm sure every party would want to shop from there to get a woman to speak for it.
So much as, you know, the women have been given a prominent place, thankfully, in Cross River State. And as I did mention, I'm choosing my words very carefully because I'm not very certain that the woman leader of the PDP, the opposing party, is from Cross River. But I know that she has very strong links with Cross River, having taught in the University of Calabar. So that's,
she is.
Oh, thank you for confirming that. So now that we know that, that definitely. Do you see the battle that women have to, you know, the hurdles that women have to cross in terms of increasing the number of representation? Do you see it in terms of opposition, or do you see it in terms of women having to come together across the divide to see how they can increase the numbers of women representation in the National Assembly or in government in general?
I think women should come together in one voice across party lines, across political lines, religious lines, ethnic lines. We should come together in one voice to ask for better women representation at all levels, whether it's elective or appointed positions. We should come all out to ask for it. It's really, really very sad. The very few numbers of women we have almost everywhere. And you see, it starts from the elective position, it trickles down into the appointed position, it trickles down into job employment, it trickles down into contracts, to almost every facet, right? And you see, it has that ripple effect even on health, on agriculture, on everything else. Once a woman is not empowered, right, it affects her health. You hear very high level of maternal mortality in Nigeria, right? Some of this is caused by the fact that the woman cannot make a simple decision to go to the hospital on time. Why? She's not financially empowered. She's not educated. She doesn't even know how to speak up for herself. So she sits down there and she dies. Her baby dies. So we need to, at all costs, as a nation, we must be deliberate about mainstreaming women. We must be deliberate about empowering them. And that's what the focus of the APC is. We're out to mainstream women. We're out to empower them. And we have clear policies that have been lined up, directed at this, and implementation is already ongoing.
Well, when we now come to the APC, there are very, very strong questions as to how the party has performed in terms of ensuring that there are more women in governance. You have seen the figures in terms of how many women are now in the National Assembly. The figures have dipped even further. Before, we used to have at least a minimum of 7%. And rather than improve on that, we are now at between 3 to 4%, which is certainly not a good marker. We've seen how gender bills have fared under this administration. They haven't done quite well. We've seen how affirmative action, which was at 35% at least for appointed positions within the federal cabinet, hopefully the idea was a lot of states will take pointers from that. That has not been the case in this administration. So there have been major questions as to the fate of women under the APC. So some people will say that your task is certainly an uphill one as national woman leader of this party in ensuring that there are more women running for office and more women getting elected. How did you perceive your role when you were taking up this particular job?
So first and foremost, I saw it as an avenue to help improve on things, right? The party has tried to give some inclusion to women over time at different levels. But right now, we need to step that inclusion up to the next level. We need to get more deliberate about it. We need to come forward with policies that helps us to actually achieve the result on the ground. We need to be practical about it. And this is why I'm here. First and foremost, the party was able to elect me, of course, as probably the youngest national woman leader in any political party in Nigeria, just to get in a section of people who feel politics is not really their thing, right? We have a lot of young women who are out there. In fact, they make up majority of the voters that go out to vote. And sometimes they have that a party or they're not interested. And this is because they feel this is not their thing. Maybe it's for the older women. We're not supposed to be here and all of that. And it reduces the number. At the same time, we have professional women who used to think, oh, I'm core professional. I shouldn't be in politics. I shouldn't be in party. I shouldn't get myself involved in all of that business. But here I am. I'm a professional who has risen to the height of my profession, but I am still actively involved in politics trying to make the difference. So it's to appeal to this group of people to join forces with those who we already have on board so that we can have an increased representation. Yes, good and fine. I know it's going to be an uphill task to go out and lobby and convince the men that we're partners in progress and they can help women to be mainstreamed. They can support women in so many ways to be mainstreamed. But then I'm not bothered by that because I know that I have the full backing of the party to do so. We came into an NWC and we said as part of our strategies, which we want to increase female representation across board, let the women get the forms free of charge. And it was almost 100% nod to it. Yes, 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 give the women the forms free of charge. And I want to tell you this for certain, right? As at yesterday, which was day 2 of the sales of forms, I can categorically tell you, in fact, at the end of day 1, we already had 2 women who have bought forms for governorship, who had gotten the forms for governorship. It's free. We had women who, so many, in fact, majority of the people who were picking the forms were women, right? So that's the starting point. Like I said, it's not the end. It's just the starting point, one of our strategies. Another one which we're doing actively is to lobby and then work on our delegates to see how these women can cross from being aspirants to becoming candidates.
You know, we've been on this conversation of women inclusion in governance for quite a while, and I've listened to some women, women politicians speak, and they have said that this giving candidates forms for free is actually one of the ways women are disempowered. They do not see it as an empowerment for women because they say that when they're talking about zoning or other sort of arrangements within the party, the people who are given least consideration are those who got their forms for free. It will seem that already, because we've seen how, you know, you've seen the presidential form within your party. It's going for 100 million naira. That has not deterred the people who are declaring right, middle, left, and center from declaring. And people know why they're declaring. It's high-stake politics. It's how you get relevant in the scheme of things. There is a new provision within the Electoral Act that says that, you know, all the candidates, assuming the party is going to go for consensus, all the candidates must agree that that is the consensus candidate in writing. Now, if you are a candidate, assuming a woman candidate, who got your form for free, what real powers for negotiation do you have when push comes to shove and maybe you have to drop your ambition for the consensus candidate that has been picked by a party? Would you really be given as much consideration as those who have, you know, given huge sums of money to be able to purchase these forms?
So first and foremost, at no point is zoning based on whether you paid money for a form or not. APC does not zone based on whether the monies are paid or not. There are other considerations that actually guide zoning. That's number one. Secondly, it's not, you have to pay for an interest, expression of interest form. You must pay for that before you go to pick up the forms, which are free. So you have put some commitment to say, I'm interested in this. And then thirdly, I'll state this very clearly. The options for women were usually very limited. Remember, most of them are not financially as empowered as the male counterparts. So when you say pick the form, maybe one woman would be able to pick a form for senatorial seat. And for any reason, that woman does not meet the qualification, automatically she's gone. And that slot for a woman is gone. So a male counterpart, maybe there are 5, there's 6 that have picked the forms. They would choose one person from the male counterpart, and that one goes through. Maybe the woman might have issues with the requirements, she's not meeting up the deadline, or something. She didn't submit the form on time, or she made an error when she was filling the form, or something, and she's screened out. And that's the end of it. So women don't get that slot anymore. But today, as we speak, I can give you an example of a state in the north where we have one person who have picked up a form for a governorship candidate, a woman. We have 3 people who have picked up forms for senatorial seats, women. We have 6 women that have picked up forms for House of Reps. We have 12 women that have picked up forms for the House of Assembly. If you are a party and you want to bring out a consensus, with this number of women that have picked up forms all across this seat, you will definitely try to pick women amongst this as part of your consensus candidate. So it opens up the window, it increases the options that are available, and it brings up that probability that more women will get elected into offices and would represent women.
Well, that's your hope. That's the hope that you're having, sure. That, you know, with more women, you know, picking up the forms, that if the...
So it's not just hoping, we want to walk through it to the end. So the different levels of it, from the form picking, which we have tried to give women that leverage, and then to the primaries, and then the campaigns itself, which we intend to support women that are running under our party from the APC Women's Wing.
Tell us about that, the supporting women, because listening to Samson there, Samson Itodo talking about how we know that the price for forms is the smallest part of the problem. That, I mean, we also have a few, how will I put it now, a few people whom we know personally who are, you know, running, who have declared interest. I happen to know a woman who says that this is just a stage of consultation, and the amount of money involved in consultation alone, you know, is mind-blowing. So the huge questions as to you know, and that is before you even get to the primaries and before you cross the hurdle to campaigns. That getting to the primaries and being picked as a candidate is a major hurdle. In some instances, perhaps it's the real hurdle that you have to cross. So tell us about how you intend, after they have maybe finally seen themselves to become candidates. You know, so there were questions as to how much support can you really provide in the process of consultation. But after they have become candidates, what sort of support are you looking to give them during the campaigns?
So we're coming from two angles. First of all, before they become candidates, at the level of the primaries, we have what we call the Progressive Women's Trust Fund. And women are making contributions into this trust fund to support other women. That's why I say women fighting for women, women speaking with one voice. We're making contributions into this trust fund to support women who are running. When we look through the list, right now we're compiling the list of all the aspirants. When you buy a form, we get your data down. When we look through the list, where we have conflict of interest, we'll call our women together and say, look, let's have our own little form of consensus at this point so that we can all throw our weight behind this person to scale through the primaries. Once you've scaled through the primaries, of course, at the primaries, we'll have to financially back them up to be able to scale through that point. Once you've scaled through that point, really, in the real sense of it, you become the business of the party. So the party which you have registered to run on their platform takes the responsibility to ensure that the party delivers itself on your candidature in that location where you're running. And from the women's wing, we have already earmarked how we'll be supporting female candidates across the country that would be running for elections. We'll support them in so many ways. All of these are strategies which our party is bringing on board to ensure that women actually are moved from being a candidate to actually winning the elections, and we're there to represent other women.
Your party, it would seem, had a golden opportunity to make all of this easy peasy. First and foremost, there have been talk about how it would have been a lot easier if we had affirmative action. You know, the law demanding that, you know, quotas be filled by a certain percentage of women. And it would seem that we've missed those golden opportunities. We saw how the Constitution Amendment went and the protests that greeted that amendment afterwards. How are you helping your party understand the implications of this and how it demarcates them in the elections, especially when they're talking to women voters?
So first and foremost, I must at this point strongly commend the wife of the president. For the first time in the history of our country, the wife of a president went to the National Assembly to fight for the rights of women. She went with the Minister for Women Affairs and several other women. And then, of course, for several days, women were out there really raising a voice to say, these are our rights and they must be supported. And I'm happy that the House of Reps is beginning to reconsider all of the bills that were initially not passed, and after that the Senate would carry that on. And I believe strongly, hopefully, that we can be able to reconsider this and allow them to scale through.
Do we have that commitment already? Because
yes, the House of Reps, the Speaker.
Yes, the last we heard was the House, but we haven't heard a word from the Senate.
Yes, so we are working on that. We're lobbying with the Senate members and the Senate President, and very soon he'll be issuing out his commitment. But the House of Reps, they are already on it. But now we need to, as a party, work on the fundamental issues. You cannot have less than 20 people in the entire, women in the entire National Assembly and believe that a gender-sensitive bill will just swim through easily. It's not possible. So this is the time to fix the foundation so that when we come back with bills and we have over 60, 70 women at the National Assembly, it's a strong voice. They can lobby their colleagues and we'll be able to have a smooth scale through. So we are dealing with the foundation while still appealing to the leadership of the National Assembly to ensure that these bills are being passed as soon as possible. But then beyond this, as a party, we are resolved. You know, we have a monitoring and evaluation team in our party. They get to monitor They get to look at, in fact, a new one was reconstituted with the new executive that came in. We monitor those who ran on the ticket and the platform of our party. And then we're asking, how well have you performed in this sector? How well have you performed on this topic? How well have you performed on this discussion? For the women discussion, we've done that evaluation, and we're already sharing it with those persons who are affected to say, no, we must take a U-turn and ensure that women have that confidence in our party to come on board and run, and at the same time to give support, because that's another huge part of the work which we need to do. Sensitization. I'm glad we got like 8 months to run on this, to sensitize the public, to bring more women on board APC, sensitize them to support APC, believing that as we deliver on this next set of women into different positions, they would be accountable to us as women, they would fight for the rights of women, and they would ensure that there's gender mainstreaming for women. What's your target? Can I ask you, what at the end of 2023, what exactly are you hoping to have achieved? So first and foremost, we're hopeful, very hopeful, that we can have a first female governor at the end of 2023. We're also very, very hopeful that we can have several deputy governors. We already know states that have identified women and they're ready to run with them as deputy governors. We're really very happy about that. We're still lobbying some other states. Of course, you know about Ekiti. Of course, you know about Ogun and several other states that have women as deputizing our candidates in those states. We're also working on having at least 3 National Assembly members in every state. So it's either you do a Senate and 2 reps or 3 reps or whatever it is, but at least 3 National Assembly members from a state, minimum 2 from across all the states. That's really our target. And then when it comes to the House of Assembly, we're looking at between 6 to 9, depending on the number of people who are in the Assembly that can actually be women. That way we're sure that if bills come at the states that are gender, that's the female gender now, specific, those women can uphold it and ensure it goes through. If it comes at the National Assembly, we can have over 60 women on board the platform to ensure those bills scale through. This is the foundational stage. In fact, like I used to tell them, the next 35 days will say if we have victory or not. Because if we can get more women as candidates, then the probability of them becoming the re-elected officers is really very high. Well, Dr. Betta Edu, I can't but wish you all the best in this lofty and very ambitious targets that you have set for yourself. We've been speaking with Dr. Betta Edu, who is a national woman leader of the All Progressives Congress and also former Commissioner for Health in Cross River State. Thank you once again for coming on Sunrise Daily. You're welcome. Thank you for having me.